Hello, I'm Jana and I have done VanLife for 7.5 years now, and sometimes I wonder how is it possible that I still love it so much when there are people who could not imagine anything worse. Some tried and bounced back again, like one of my friends. She has done VanLife for a year now and now she is ready to go back to renting a room, and I'm just like, how can you do that after tasting that kind of freedom? Some people choose van life for adventure, for minimalism, or to save money. But I stayed because it meets something much deeper in me: freedom, solitude, nature. And most importantly, control over my own life. Being able to leave on a whim makes me feel safe. And that probably sounds strange to people who grew up in safe homes. But I didn't. I felt trapped my entire childhood. So today I want to talk about my childhood, how I became hyper-independent and why I cut my whole family off. And why van life, out of all things, ended up feeling like home. I noticed this topic has been coming up a lot lately. Adult children being accused of being ungrateful, spoiled, cutting off their parents without good reason. Parents saying, I gave them everything, I did my best, I gave them love, and they still turned on me. And yes, I think it's possible that despite your best efforts, you may end up raising a horrible person. Maybe sometimes there are some underlying issues. But in general, I find it a little bit hard to believe that somebody would cut off their parents despite receiving a loving care growing up. But at the same time, what do I know? My mother had a best friend who had a daughter similar age to me, and she always treated her like her friend. My mother was actually laughing at her about that. She's like, that's not your friend, it's your possession. And I was always so jealous because she had a mother who loved her, who never hurt her, and I was like, why can't I have that? And these days, they have a very strained relationship. And I just don't understand why. So is she really that spoiled that she cannot see how lucky she was to have her mother and not mine? Or, I don't know. I never talked to her. We kind of drifted apart when we grew up. And so I don't know the other side of the story. So it's really hard to judge when you don't know both sides. But for me, I understand that nobody can be really perfect. Most parents carry their own wounds, but there is a line between being non-perfect and being downright cruel, which is a line that my mother crossed every single day. I believe that the parent-child bond is not automatic, that it creates through childhood, through safety, care and consistency. And if that's not provided, the bond can be stunted or maybe not created at all. Before I go further, a content warning. This story includes childhood mistreatment, animal harm, and thoughts of self-harm. I'm intentionally using less graphic language to stay YouTube friendly. But if these topics are hard for you, please take care of yourself and skip this one. So I was born 40 years ago in a communist country. My mother got married when she was 19, and I'm pretty sure she did that mainly to get away from her parents' house. Actually, I did something similar at 19. Thankfully, the times were different and I did not have to marry that guy. She got pregnant at 24 and she did not want to be a mother. But unfortunately, she did not have any say in it because my father did not agree with termination, and because it was a communistic country, you had to make a request and go in front of a commission if you wanted something like that. And since my father wouldn't have agreed, I think my mother didn't even try because that would have been denied straight away. So in a sense, I feel really sorry for her that choice was taken away from her. I think she knew very well that she should not be a mother. My parents divorced when I was 7, and I remember I was not sad at all when my father left, because in my mind, instead of 2 people hurting me, I only had 1 left. My only regret was that I was left with the more cruel parent. And my father stopped seeing me when I was 9. It was supposed to be my 10th birthday. I was supposed to spend it with him, but for some reason my mother cancelled on short notice. I don't remember why, but my father was so angry. He told me he's not gonna bother anymore, and if I ever want to see him again, I need to call him. And I never called him. I had quite a bit of resentment towards him back then, because I felt like he knew my mother. He knew where he is leaving me, how my life is going to be with her, and he left me there anyway. And so, yeah, I never called. I was just like, what kind of person would do that? I remember when they were still together, so I was very small. They came to me and they asked which one of them I like better. What a stupid question to ask a child, but I remember my mental process very lively. I was thinking, well, when my dad is punishing me, it hurts less than from my mother, and so I guess I like my father better. So I said father, but I wasn't thinking about anything nice. I was just thinking about the pain. My mother, I would say, was a deeply disturbing woman. There was something wrong with her. She really enjoyed hurting animals. She was a hunter, not only animals, obviously, especially foxes. She hated foxes. And the people in our small village very well knew about it. If they had any unwanted puppies or kittens and they couldn't bring themselves to get rid of them, if you know what I mean, they would bring it to our house and my mother would take care of it. She also was breeding dogs, hunting dogs, and if the dogs were not very good at hunting foxes, she would try to sell them, but if nobody wanted them, she would get rid of them. Basically, the 2 of them would go into a forest and only one of them would come back. I could never do anything right. I ruined her life. She told me constantly how stupid I am, how much she regrets having such a stupid child. She told me I will never achieve anything. She called me names I wasn't even allowed to say. I was so shocked when she called me the C word or a cow. And I just learned to walk on eggshells. I didn't want to meet her anywhere because I never knew what would trigger her. Sometimes only the fact that I'm breathing was enough. Somebody maybe made her mad at work and she would come home and take it out on me. I was like her punching bag. Sometimes I would get punished for following instructions too. Like I remember once I had a shirt and there was a stain on it and it came out of the wash and it still had the stain, so I put it back into the wash. And when she found it, she got so angry. She was yelling at me like, why did you put it back there? I just washed it. And I said, it's because it still has a stain. And then she was like, then are you stupid or what? It's not gonna come off, obviously. Put it back into your cupboard. So that's what I did. And then a few months later, we went to a wedding and she was going through the few clothes I owned to have a look what I could wear. And she grabbed that shirt and I said, well, not that one has a stain. And I got punished for not putting it into the wash. So that was my life. I was trying to be invisible, not to wake the dragon, so to speak. And we lived in a small house. My parents used to sleep in the living room and I was in the bedroom, which to get to the bathroom you had to go through the living room. And I was often so scared to get out there that I remember once I threw up all over my duvet because I couldn't go to the bathroom. Then when my father left and it was only my mother, I remember once I peed in a gherkin jar for the same reason. But then my mother started sleeping in the bedroom as well, with me in the bed. There were basically two single beds pushed together. And I don't know, she just slept there with me and I felt so uncomfortable. And throughout the years I tried to suggest a few times that we rearrange the furniture and maybe separate the beds so that everyone has their own. But my mother always ignored it. And I absolutely hated it, especially growing up, being in puberty and all. I had to sleep like that till 19 when I left for uni. She punished me with a massive wooden cooking spoon, the ones you would see at school kitchens. And then one day she broke it over a dog. And then she used my father's fireman belt. And she would always put maximum strength into it. Yes, I made it way worse by running, because she would expect me to just obediently stand there and wait for her to get to me to punish me, but I was just so terrified of her. I couldn't help it. I was running. I think it would actually look quite comical looking back at it. I was running around the coffee table in the living room and she was after me, and the more laps we made, the more angry she was, and I knew that it's gonna hurt even more because she will put all the anger into it, but I couldn't help it. I was in pure survival mode. Between the age of, let's say, 11 and 13, I did want to end my life. I remember sometimes I would stand next to the road waiting for a car to pass, and intrusive thoughts would come into my mind, like, what if you jumped now? All the problems would be gone. And then I also collected pills. Every time my mother sent me to buy her some painkillers for her migraines, I would get some extra and stash it away, and I was waiting for my stash. I didn't know how many I need. So I was just waiting till I have what feels like enough, but in the end I never done it because I felt like I'm the only good thing that happens to our dogs. The dogs also had a very bad life, and I felt like I'm the only one there who plays with them, who cuddles them, who loves them, and if I wasn't there anymore, then they would have had nothing. Of course, sometimes I wonder what I would have done differently if I went back in time. Like, why didn't I talk to social services? Why didn't I talk to the police? Or why didn't I run away? But I was just terrified that they wouldn't believe me and they would bring me straight back home. I mean, bashing children was kind of normal back then. Maybe not to that extent, but how are you going to convince people that it's crossing a line? I don't know. And I knew that if I tried something like that, the punishment would be even worse. And people, of course, must have known. I'm pretty sure my teachers knew, my neighbors knew, my grandparents obviously knew, and they never did anything. It's called the bystander effect. Like, everybody assumes that somebody else will do something and nobody does nothing, and the child then feels like they are not worth saving. Nobody is going to help them. The only person that tried to talk to my mother was her best friend that I have already mentioned, and she was always telling her, if you don't stop, you will end up alone when you are old. She's not gonna want to know you. And my mother would get a little bit scared for a day or two. She would try, and then she would go back to her old self. Funny story, once we were at our neighbor's place and we were there with the grandmother, and I must have done or said something that my mother found inappropriate, and she would ask me, like, do you want buchar? Chceš buchara? And that was a code word for, you know. And the grandma, sweet, innocent grandma, she was like, what's that? Is that a candy? And that's also the reason why I never liked my grandparents, because despite them being nice to me, I would say, they never hurt me, but they knew and they never did anything. They were also the ones who raised my mother, so I knew they were not nice to her. So in an indirect way, they did hurt me by hurting her, I guess. And they also were deeply two-faced. Because I learned to walk like a ninja and be invisible. They often didn't know I was around. Like, they had a huge 3-story house. They were not rich or anything, they built it themselves, but they would often assume I was upstairs, and then I could hear them talk about our family, about me, my mother, her brother. And they would be saying things they would never tell to your face. They would smile to your face and then say such horrible things behind your back. So I always knew that about them. And what I hated the most was that my grandmother wanted to always hug and kiss me, to say hello when we came and goodbye when we left. And I absolutely hated that. I didn't want that. The only touch I got from my mother was to cause pain. She would never show any affection. God forbid somebody would kiss on the TV while we were watching it. I remember when I was 18, I was writing a birthday card to my first boyfriend back then, and it was a bit long. It was actually kind of a love letter, and my mother was horrified. She was cringing so hard. She was like, how are you not ashamed? Like, how are you not embarrassed? This is embarrassing. And now there was this grandmother who wanted to hug and kiss me, and I didn't want it. I would try to push her away. I would say, no, grandma, I don't want this. And she would always grab me anyway. She was stronger, of course, she was an adult. And I just always felt so violated. And then she would say that my mother did not raise me right. And I'm like, well, no shit. Like, did you see my mother? And by the way, who did that to her? Oh, grandmother also insisted that she's gonna come into the bathroom while I'm having a bath and wash my back. And she did that for way too long, and like past the time when I was comfortable with that. And so one day I just locked the door and I didn't let her in. And she was pounding and yelling the whole time I was there. Oh my gosh. But thankfully she kind of got the message and she hasn't tried after that. But you see, that is probably the reason why I am on the other side of the planet. When I was young, I just couldn't tell them, like, I don't want to come visit you anymore. I don't like any of you. Like, I needed a good reason. Like, you know, I would have come, but I'm far away. I can't help it. My mother actually stopped physically hurting me when I grew taller than her. When I moved away, she actually treated me quite nice, and she maybe hinted once or twice that she kind of regretted the way she treated me as a child. But I never saw it as a growth, because for me it was more like a capitulation, like she doesn't dare to hurt me because I'm not weak anymore. So she didn't stop because she was kind. She stopped because she no longer could. And everybody is like, you have to forgive your parents, blah blah blah. I don't think forgiveness is necessary for healing. You can heal fully without forgiving somebody who hurt you. Forgiveness is about reclaiming your life, not making others comfortable. My mother prevented the bond from forming when I needed it, so I couldn't expect it later on. I stayed in contact with her while I was in New Zealand, and I even helped her to pay off her car when she lost her job, but it wasn't out of love, it was just out of... I felt like I am obliged to do that. But I asked her to stop doing one thing, and that was to tell me when she goes to Slovakia for her dog fox fighting competitions, which are very cruel things that are actually illegal in my country, and that's why she would go to Slovakia all the time. And so she stopped saying she's going for competitions. She would only say, oh, I went to Slovakia. And I'm like, Mother, I'm not stupid. I know why you go to Slovakia. It's just, it was such a big deal for her. It was such a big part of her life that she just could not say it. It was the only thing she had in life, and I guess that was the last drop when I decided that I do not need that in my life. I was still trying to process the trauma. I was having some depressive episodes, like not too heavy, maybe one day or two I would be sad, but I certainly didn't need any reminders of my childhood. And my mother, I guess she understood why I did that, but my grandmother, I think in her eyes she was always only good to me. She would feed me, she would slip me some pocket money, and it was the only money I ever had. She would give me sweets. I had to hide all of it from my mother, otherwise she would eat the chocolate and take my money. But still, for me, she was someone who did not respect my boundaries, who raised a person who hurt me a lot, and I didn't want her in my life. So I feel a bit sorry that she didn't understand, but I have no regrets for what I have done, for cutting her off. After that, I did get rid of my depression, and that's mainly because of this book. This book literally saved my life. And I'm not saying don't go to therapist. You should go to therapist if you have any issues like that. It's just me. I like taking shortcuts. I don't like going to people for help. My grandparents and my mother are not alive anymore. And as horrible as it's going to sound, my mother's passing was actually a relief. Like, so much anger just lifted, because I find you can't be angry at someone who is not here anymore. And so that helped immensely in my healing process. And in the end, I might have forgiven her. Not forgotten, and not in the sense of excusing what she did, but through exploring spirituality, not religion, I found a way to make sense of my life that helped me heal. One idea that helped me was seeing my life as something I agreed to experience, rather than something that just happened to me. Not because it was fair, and not because it was deserved, but because it gave me back a sense of control over my own life. No! So why does VanLife feel like home to me when it feels isolating and uncomfortable to others? Because my childhood taught me that homes weren't safe. Four walls weren't protection, they were my prison. Other people weren't comfort, they were threats. People who grow up with trauma often become hyper-independent, unable to rely on others, needing full autonomy to feel safe. That's exactly what VanLife gives me. In my van, everything is predictable, because I decided. If I feel unsafe, I leave. No one can trap me. No one controls my movements. No one decides when I stay or go. Maybe except for the rangers. What others see as a luxury, I experience as a necessity. VanLife isn't about running away. It's about never being trapped again. Every time I start the engine, I'm proving to that little girl that she is free now, that she gets to choose, that she is safe. Some people need roots, and I needed wings. There is no single right way to heal. Some people heal by building families, some by creating stable homes. I healed by choosing a life where I answer to no one, wake up in nature, and carry my home with me. Regaining control is one of the most important factors in recovery. VanLife gave me that, a safe space I built myself. I am sharing this to offer another perspective. Sometimes going no contact isn't about punishment or revenge. It's about survival, about protecting the person you fought so hard to become. And maybe to explain why some people thrive in VanLife while others hate it. Your childhood shapes what feels like freedom and what feels like safety. For me, they are the same thing. If this resonates with you, you are not alone. And if you judge someone for cutting off their family, maybe remember, you don't know the whole story. Not all families are safe. Not all homes are havens. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.